Welcome to Commercial Photographer, your guide to marketing, creativity, and growth. This is a podcast that helps commercial, brand, and headshot photographers navigate the competitive world of commercial photography with actionable strategies to grow your business.
Marcus, welcome to the show. We've got a very different show today, don't we?
We do, Sam. We do indeed. We're going to commemorate the passing of Martin Parr.
Very famous photographer, been mentioned on the show many times, but many of the photographers mentioned on the show are photographers that photographers know, but not necessarily the public. Well, Martin Parr was one of the photography greats, wasn't it? Was
exactly right,
out
Sam.
there in the public, was known across the country and possibly across the world.
Oh, Sam, not possibly. He was more well known in Europe than in the UK by far. The French loved him. The Japanese loved him. He was really, I don't think it's going too far to say he's probably one of the most famous photographers on the planet, or was.
Today is all about sharing with our listeners stories about Martin Parr and about his life in the photography.
In my career, 25-year career, I've come across Martin a few times, so I thought I might share about that, and also just one or two bits that you might not be hearing in the news. There has been a lot of coverage about it.
There is, and it's the mainstream media too, isn't it? It's not just the photography press. Yeah, I was reading something in The Guardian just 2 days ago. It's right across the press. He is such a big figure in photography.
I'm getting a bit sad about all this, but here we go. His parents were both keen bird watchers. He wasn't that keen on watching them themselves. I think this is where the observing, the passion for looking at things in detail started via his parents. He wasn't a twitcher, but certainly I think what he got from it was just the people and the quirky nature of it and the obsessiveness of it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing once one of his talks by Martin, and he showed his first exhibition that he did. He showed a photograph from his first exhibition that he did for his BA photography that he studied up in Manchester, and it was a photograph of his final show. What most students do is they're going to put in your portfolio, or there might be some prints in the wall. No, that was not good enough for Martin Parr. What Martin built was a whole room set in this sort of very quirky English look with flock wallpaper and chairs, and then he put his prints on the wall in this like front room, this typical quintessential living room. And I think that is the start of a career that's done with ferocity and passion, isn't it, when you do something like that?
Does it not reflect a lot of his work, because it is all about the everyday life?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Especially Englishness, he looked at in detail, and it totally reflects that. But to start off with that as your degree shows intent with a capital I. Yeah. And then obviously he went on, and he was pretty successful shooting and working hard straight from the get-go. And he was always, even though he started off shooting black and white, and he did a lot of black and white photography because he was part of that British documentary movement, he soon went to shoot in colour. And I'm not going to talk about his technique too much in this show, but a little nugget that some of our listeners might enjoy. The film that he used was Fuji Superior film, which I don't know do you remember that, Sam? Superior.
Fuji film. I don't remember the types, I have to be honest.
Superior was made for the amateur market. And so when he went down to Boots Chemist, it was always Fuji Superior. And this film had a very, very colourful film. It had the chemicals in it, boosted the red. So you got very saturated colours out of it.
Because he's known for that, isn't he? That really bright, saturated colour. So that's actually partly from the film.
That's exactly right. Partly from the film. He used to overexpose it. So if you had 400 film, he'd rate it on his camera, shooting manual film camera, we're talking. He'd rate it at 200. So he'd overexpose it by one stop, which would give even more contrast and even more punchier colours. And that combined with using his on-camera flash, Vivitar that he used, or a ring flash, gave it that very unique look that really he cornered the market with it.
And the Martin Parr look is, although you're talking about his black and white work, came about with colour.
Yes, it did. In the public's consciousness, certainly did, Sam. He did a few books with black and white, but we know him for colour. And you mentioned the Guardian newspaper there. He was a regular photographer for the Guardian, and most of that was in colour.
Was that for news articles or for actually as photographic articles? What was he contributing?
Editorials. These would be page articles for the magazine that would be maybe 3 or 4 pages long, really in-depth studies, Great. Martin, another thing that people may or may not know about him, he was an obsessive collector of objects. And I mean obsessive. I don't know where he stored it all. He lives down here in Bristol, but he collected a lot of political objects, like mugs with cartoon characters of Margaret Thatcher or Ronald Reagan on them. He collected wallpaper. Oh my, he just collected everything. He was an absolute obsessive at collecting things.
And photography books in particular, I guess.
Oh, yeah. He had so many photography books that he bought a bank and he converted it into his library.
I believe now it's now with the museum.
I'm going to come into that towards the end. It's the Martin Parr Foundation.
Okay.
And just going back to the collecting thing, I'm just trying to paint a picture here. When I said about his parents being bird watchers and he was into that as a young age, he obviously had a very compulsive nature about collecting things and a thirst for knowledge. You can start to see the picture that made the man. Interestingly, on the collecting side, a very good friend of him was Sir Paul Smith, the fashion designer, and he also is an avid collector of things. Do you know Paul Smith, Sam?
I know the name, I don't know him, but...
I'm a big fan of Paul Smith. I follow him quite closely. I've got his books and I buy his clothing. I go to his shops and they're all filled up with all the stuff that he's collected over the years. The first time that I spoke to Martin was when I was doing my undergraduate degree at Bournemouth University, and he actually ran a crit for us, and we were first year students.
Wow.
4 people turned up. God almighty, me being one of them. So 4 of us sitting around this table with Martin Parr on the whole afternoon. And I must admit, I was like trembling. I was like really quite anxious about the whole thing. But we were very, very lucky. He gave his time freely. He was known for it.
So when you say crit, you're saying he's looking at your photos and then giving you help?
So we got 4 photographers around the table. I showed him mine and he didn't like it. He didn't like it. Yeah. And I thought, and it was what it was, black and white images, beautifully printed on nice paper and hand printed of these fishermen that I'd followed in Bournemouth. I went on their boat and it was a lovely story, but he was critical of it. And I thought, why is that? Then the next person was work that was quite similar to Martin's and he really loved. I thought to myself, he only saying that because he's just like his. Obviously, I was completely wrong, and I changed my photography completely after the crit. He was right to have an opinion, and of course, he's going to like work similar to himself because he's a master. Soon after that crit, I ditched the black and white, started shooting colour, flash on the camera. You got the score. The foundation, which I am so luckily, literally the foundation is 10 minutes walk down my road. Oh, wow. So, when I spoke to him there last year, I did say to him, Martin, how many books have you produced on your own? 68. 68
that's crazy.
Books, Sam. Isn't that crazy? That's on his own with other people and other books. He's contributed, it's in the 200 plus mark, but he's done 68 books of his own since he started. That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
I mean, the really famous ones are stuff like The Last Resort, and that's been well talked about. But other ones, maybe not so much talked about in the press. His one book he did was called Auto Portrait, where he went round to different photo studios around the world and had them take his photo. So he'd go to, there was like a photograph. Yeah. It was one photograph of him up in his head in a shark's mouth. Okay. How random is that? And stuff like that. Really quirky, really fun. So Martin, really, this is what Martin's all about. He did another book called, it was the last car parking space available in the car park. But he made it photographic. It was a subject. And he did a black and white book early on in his career called Bad Weather that I often cite. And it was a photograph. It was raining and thunder and, it's all very dramatic. And, when most people are putting their camera away, not Martin Parr. There he is. He's out there in the field photographing in bad weather and making a brilliant piece of work about it. And the final piece of work that I will mention is the Sign of the Times, not the Prince album, but a collaboration that he did with Channel 4, and it was all about people's interiors in the 80s.
Okay.
Do you remember that? Okay, you might not remember. I remember watching it and really enjoying it. It was quite a big program. 68 books. What a career. 73 was way, way too young, but what a career he had, what a life he led, and what a legacy he has left behind. As a photographer, well, any photographer, you do leave behind a legacy, which is quite forgotten about in some ways, Sam.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's just our own work, Sam, our own photographs that we take, the general public stuff they take. You know, you leave it behind and it's a story. It's what you did. It's proof that you did it. That's what I mean by a legacy. He led a full life. You were asking me about commercial work. We had to tread lightly here. Now, I know Martin did do commercial work, but he didn't really publicise it for one reason or another. I can understand why. Last year, he brought out a book of his fashion photography, which is definitely commercial work, and it was called Fashion Faux Pas.
Is he where you'd go to, Marcus, for your puns for the show? You do have you're a fan of the pun.
It's a good pun, that one. But this fashion book, my God, he has worked for every major designer on the planet. I've got a list here that is so long, but everybody he's just about worked for. And in fact, 2 or 3 months ago, he was telling me he just shot the front cover for Italian Vogue magazine. 73 years old, suffering from sepsis, which sadly, you know, that's where he died from in the end. He's doing a front cover for Italian Vogue. He basically started off at this foundation called the Martin Parr Foundation, and it's a studio exhibition space down here in Bristol in Paintworks. And he's also got his library there of photography collection of books. So I go down there regularly as a member of the foundation. It's only £30 a year. You can go down and you can use his library, and he's got about every photography book you could ever wish for. You can go down there, have a coffee and look through his books.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant, Sam. I'm so lucky, and he's done that for Bristol. And I often did you see him around, but you always see him around Bristol, Martin Parr, walking around, camera in hand, talking to people. He already had a smile on his face. So he's got the legacy down there, and he's promoting British documentary photography, which is, you know, not promoted enough. So even though he's passed on, that is no doubt going to carry on, and for the benefit of us all. So we've not only got his photography, we've got other people's photography that he's promoting as well.
A life well lived.
One more little thing. When he did pass away, he was actually at home, I believe, and he fell asleep watching a game of football. He was looking till the end.
Thank you for taking us through that, Marcus.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for letting me say it.